Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's drama, in a society obsessed with beauty and self-esteem, she wanted to be liked by everyone, but that wasn't the life she truly hoped for. This girl has the ability to see how many sexual partners a person has ever had. From a young age, she realized she could see a long red line on a person's head, which represents their body count. Unable to explain this weird ability, she resorts to drawing it. But one day, her mother looks through her drawing book and sees a drawing with red lines connecting her husband to her sister. The mother immediately understands her daughter's drawing. So in anger, she stabs her husband to death. This leaves the girl traumatized, so she makes up her mind to hide her ability forever. From that day, she begins to stay indoors because each time she goes out, she gets spooked by seeing the tons of red lines on people's heads. As soon as she becomes an adult, she tries to kill herself by jumping off a high building. But each time she jumps off, she magically finds herself on her bed, which means she's unable to die. Another day, she tries to slit her wrist, but the wound immediately heals itself. After multiple trials to kill herself without success, she makes up her mind to uncover the origin of the red lines, who created it, and to find other humans with the same ability. Meanwhile, Seon-ah is another high school girl who often gets bullied by her classmates. Every day, they take her to the rooftop and brutally beat her for refusing to give them money. Unknown to them, her uncle is Detective Han. On this particular day, the uncle goes to investigate a crime scene. So an assistant tells him that the night before the victim's death, a delivery man had delivered food to her, but since he was wearing a helmet, they couldn't make out his face. That night, as Shin watches the news, she hears the reporter talking about the recent killings in the neighborhood and how the killer is suspected to be a delivery man wearing a helmet. While watching the CCTV from the victim's house, she also notices that the delivery man has a single red line on his head, which means he had only slept with one person in his entire life. She finds this intriguing since it's a rare case. While pondering on this, she hears the sound of a motorcycle outside and immediately checks it out. She's shocked to see a man with a helmet stepping down from the bike. She also notices the single red line on his head and assumes it to be the serial killer from the news. She continues monitoring him and sees him visiting her kind neighbor across the street. Worried, she rushes to get her phone and calls the police while watching the man. She tells the police that a strange delivery man with a mask was around her neighborhood. As she talks to the police, she sees her neighbor acting lovey-dovey with the man, making her realize that her assumptions may be wrong, and that the delivery man may be the neighbor's boyfriend. As she continues to watch them, she sees a new red line growing out of the man's head, and then connecting to the neighbor's head to show that they are sexual partners. This scene traumatizes her. The next day, as Detective Han prepares to leave work, he receives a call from his colleague, who tells him that a strange call came from someone who reported seeing a man with a helmet in the neighborhood. The detective asks for the name of the caller and realizes that it's from the girl who lives next door. It turns out that Detective Han and Shin are neighbors. That night, Shin looks out of her window again and sees the helmet man walking to her neighbor's house. But instead of seeing two lines on his head, she sees only one, which means he had killed his previous sexual partner and was planning to kill the neighbor. She immediately panics and tries to call the police, but her phone turns off. Left with no choice, she decides to help the neighbor. She grabs a kitchen knife and tries to walk out, but her anxiety gets the best of her, causing her to walk slowly with difficulty. She gets out of her building and struggles to walk. She tries to crawl, but the fear and trauma overwhelm her, so she falls unconscious on the roadside. Meanwhile, the helmet man enters the neighbor's building, and when he looks at her head, he sees tons of red lines on her. It turns out he can also see the red lines. He begins to strangle her in order to kill her and erase the line connecting him to her. But at this moment, Shin barges into the house with a kitchen knife in her hands. She tries to stop him, but he pulls the knife away from her and stabs her with it. Coincidentally, Detective Han returns from work and goes to visit Shin at her house, since he learned she had made a distress call yesterday. Meanwhile, the helmet man returns to continue strangling his victim, but she hits him on the face, causing his glasses to fall off. He immediately panics and rushes to grab it. At the same time, Detective Han walks into Shin's house to look for her, but he's shocked to see her caseboard with tons of red lines all across it. As he studies the board, he hears a sound and looks through the windows to see the helmet man strangling the neighbor. He immediately pulls out his gun and shoots the man. As the man dies, he sees the red line disappearing out of his head and says it out loud, so Shin hears him. That night, as the cops close and clean up the scene, she remembers the man talking about the red line and wonders how he's able to see it. She then remembers him scrambling to pick up his glasses when they fell, so she wonders if the glasses gave him the ability to see the lines. The next day, as she continues to ponder on this, she receives a text message from someone telling her that they can also see the lines. The person tells her to come to enroll in a particular high school to uncover the truth about the red lines. After thinking about it for some days, she makes up her mind to enroll in high school to get the truth. Coincidentally, this is the same school that Seon-ah attends. At school, the bullies make fun of Seon-ah by reading out loud a love letter given by her crush. She tries to snatch away the letter, but the bully retaliates by fighting her. As the bully beats her, the homeroom teacher, Miss Jin, walks in to separate the fight. Later that day, Miss Jin advises Seon-ah against fighting in class, but the girl remains stubborn and murmurs to herself that she wants to kill the bully. She takes permission from the teacher to go home, but as she walks past her locker, she sees an eyeglass and wonders who kept it there. Nevertheless, she decides to take the glass. At home, she tries it on and is shocked to see a single red line on her head. At that moment, her uncle returns home, so she goes to meet him, but she sees hundreds of red lines on his head, causing her to scream out in fear. It turns out that her uncle has multiple body counts. Shocked, she runs out into the street to test out the glasses. Shin sees her acting weird with the glasses and immediately becomes suspicious. Meanwhile, Seon-ah walks down the street and is intrigued by the lines on people's heads. She realizes that it represents their body count, so she wears it to school. As she walks past her homeroom teacher, Miss Jin, she realizes that the teacher has no red lines, which means she's a virgin. She smiles at this and continues to look at other students. At this moment, she sees her bully with 2 lines, but then she realizes that one of the lines connects to a teacher at the school, causing her to gasp in shock. During class, Miss Jin announces Shin to the class as a new transfer student. Later that day, as the bully beats Seon-ah for not bringing money to school, Shin suddenly shows up and fights off the bully. That night, Seon-ah secretly follows the bully and sees her meeting up with the male teacher, so she takes a picture of them entering a motel together. The next day, she sends the picture to the teacher and requests 20 million won to keep the photos a secret. He immediately tells the bully about the photos, so she tells him that Seon-ah must have been behind the photos. One day, at the school's restroom, Shin notices Seon-ah's glass again and asks her about it. Seon-ah tries to lie about the glasses, but Shin exposes her and reveals that wearing the glasses will make her see red lines. She warns her about using the glass and reveals that it originally belonged to the serial killer. But Seon-ah ignores the warning and insists on wearing the glass. Unknown to them, the bully overhears their conversation. That night, she secretly follows Seon-ah and steals the glasses from her bag. When Seon-ah realizes that the glass is missing, she calls Shin, accusing her of stealing it. When Shin denies this, she reveals that she's heading to the school to search for the glass. Meanwhile, the bully wears the glass and is intrigued by the red lines. However, someone mysteriously kidnaps her. Seona eventually arrives at the school. She goes to the rooftop and sees the male teacher, who begs her to delete the photos since he has no money. She refuses to delete it and accuses him of turning a blind eye to the bullying happening in school. As he begs her, he suddenly receives a text from his wife, who had found out about the photos. In anger, he yells at her. Meanwhile, Shin runs to the school to check up on Seona, but she unfortunately sees the scene of Seona falling down from the rooftop. She immediately rushes her to the hospital for an operation. Her uncle arrives and asks her about the incident, so she reveals that Seona went to school to find something, and that someone must have pushed her from the rooftop. The next day, at the school, the principal notices that a teacher hasn't shown up to school, so he criticizes the other teachers for being negligent and causing a student to jump off the roof. As they argue over this, Shin arrives at school and notices that the bully is also absent from school, but she doesn't think much of it. Meanwhile, Seon-ah survives the fall, but remains unconscious, so her uncle spends the entire day watching over her. As for Shin, she walks around the school watching out for anyone wearing the glasses. The next day, Detective Han arrives at the school to question his niece's homeroom teacher. He asks for the name of her bully, but the teacher reveals that the bully had suddenly gone missing. That night, he spends his time reviewing CCTV footage of his niece on the day she fell from the rooftop. While watching, he sees the moment the bully steals something from his niece's bag. Curious about what she stole, he reviews more CCTV footage and sees her walking around with a glass. But she enters a dark alley and never walks out. So, the next day, he persuades his supervisor to investigate his niece's case. But the man insists on closing the case in order to protect the high school's reputation. Detective Han doesn't give up. He remains adamant on getting to the truth. The next day, the photo of the teacher and the bully together near a motel began to circulate around the school. The students also see the picture and gossip endlessly about it, but this only makes Shin curious about who could have revealed the photos. Meanwhile, Detective Han and his crew find the dead body of the male teacher inside a car in a parking lot. It turns out he had killed himself due to the guilt and shame. The detectives find a handwritten note next to his body and wonder if he had recently killed himself. But a subordinate points out that the man had been dead for 3 days from the autopsy results. Hearing this, Detective Han concludes that the man had been killed somewhere else, but his body was transported to the car and left in the parking lot. Later that day, Detective Han goes to school to pick up Shin. While driving her home, he tries to inquire about more details about his niece. So Shin tells him that if he finds the glasses that his niece used to wear, she'll tell him the truth. Although he's confused about the sudden mention of glasses, he makes up his mind to investigate. In the night, as he reviews the note written by the male teacher, he gets an idea to find his niece's diary. So he runs back home to search for it. He finds the diary and immediately meets up with Shin to ask her about the drawing in the diary. It turns out his niece had made a drawing of herself wearing the glass and seeing tons of red lines. He asks Shin about the red lines and their correlation with the glass, so she confesses that the mysterious glass gives its wearer the ability to see the red lines that represent body counts. He's shocked to hear this and asks if she can also see the lines, so she reveals that she has had the ability to see the lines since she was born. He asks if there are more pairs of glasses, but she doesn't know. Meanwhile, at school, a female teacher gets scolded in front of other teachers for making a mistake. It turns out that this teacher can also see the red lines due to her glasses. During lunch, as she discusses with her colleague, she tells them that her dream is to become an actor. As they talk about her dreams, a music teacher passes by, so they all admire him for being handsome. She also joins in admiring him. That day, after school, she dress up in a pink wig and enter a hotel. Coincidentally, Shin works part-time as a receptionist at the same hotel. While working, her two new friends at school show up to visit and accompany her at the hotel. At that moment, the female teacher with a wig shows up and requests a room. Although Shin doesn't look at her face, her friend sees the female teacher but struggles to recognize her face. The female teacher checks into her hotel room and happily lies on the bed. Then, she begins to talk to herself, saying she had slept with tons of men, but after meeting the music teacher, she became uninterested in other men. So, she wishes to sleep with him. Later that day, as Shin does the laundry at the hotel, the female teacher checks out of the hotel, so the two new friends recognize her as a teacher from their school. When Shin looks at the woman, she's amused to see only one red line on the woman's head. That night, as she watches the news, a journalist reports on the recent serial killer who was caught by the police. Shin immediately notices the gold-rimmed glasses on the killer, so she realizes that there may be multiple pairs of the glasses. The next day, after school, as she walks home with her new school friend, he invites her to eat ramen. So, as they eat together, she tells him about her unusual ability that lets her see red lines on people's heads. He believes her words without doubt and says he trusts her because she has no reason to lie. The female teacher with a pink wig visits the hotel and books the same room again. As Shin cleans one of the hotel rooms, she overhears the teacher talking to herself about how she had magically found her pair of glasses while lodging in the hotel room. She also talks about how she found a hole in the hotel room, which she uses to spy on people sleeping with each other. As she continues to talk to herself, a customer walks into the room next to hers, so she rushes to spy on them. But she's shocked to see that the customer is actually the music teacher from her school. She happily watches him, but when she discovers he's there to sleep with a famous actress, her expression changes to anger. She continues to spy on them sleeping with each other, and discovers that the music teacher only has a single red line connecting him to the actress. But the actress has multiple lines, which means she was cheating on him. The female teacher continues to spy on them and overhears them planning to meet again the next day, so she meets Shin, the receptionist, and requests to extend her stay at the hotel. Then, she secretly pulls a fire extinguisher into her room and lies in wait. As soon as the actress arrives the next day, she immediately hits her with the extinguisher, rendering her unconscious. Then she ties her up in the room and leaves to meet the music teacher in place of the actress. The unsuspecting music teacher is shocked to see her and tries to leave, but he suddenly feels dizzy and falls. So, she makes out with his unconscious body and confesses that she had previously mixed poison in his drinking water. As she lies with him on the bed, he begins to bleed out of his head, but she ignores the bleeding and forces herself on him, causing him to die. Later on, she sits in the bathtub and uses a stapler to stab into her body, leading to her death. Meanwhile, Shin comes across the trapped actress in the hallway and immediately enters the hotel room to find the dead music teacher. She immediately calls the police, so Detective Han and his crew show up to investigate the scene. The detective notices that there are no glasses at the scene. Later on, he returns to the crime scene and drains the water out of the bathtub. Underneath, he finds the glass and puts it on, causing him to see the hundreds of red lines on his own head. Upon seeing this, he goes to visit his niece and sees only one line on her head, so he wonders who she must have slept with. At work, he sits at the entrance looking at the lines on his co-worker's head and marveling at himself. While speaking to a colleague, a timid high school girl walks into the station and requests to make a report. When he looks at her head, he sees 4 red lines, and wonders why she has that many body counts. Later that day, he drags his niece's ex-boyfriend to the hospital to see if their red lines connect with each other. But he's disappointed to find out that they don't connect. So, he continues to wonder who she must have slept with. Meanwhile, Shin receives a mysterious text from an unknown number, inviting her to a birthday party. As she contemplates it in school, she sees her timid classmate walking into class. She's shocked to see that the classmate suddenly has 4 red lines on her head. Later at the station, the timid high school girl makes a report to the police, saying she had visited a male classmate at his house, but she got drunk, and when she woke up, she discovered he had taken advantage of her. A female detective asks if it was her first time sleeping with a man, so she responds with a yes. Detective Han looks at her 4 red lines and wonders why she's lying about the number of people she has slept with. But later that day, he goes with a colleague to the high school to interview the male student who took advantage of the timid girl. There, he meets the homeroom teacher, Miss Jin, and realizes that she doesn't have a red line. As he interrogates the male student, he realizes that the boy has 1 red line. But when he asks if he had violated the timid student, the boy denies the accusation and insists that the girl is lying against him. So, Detective Han leaves the school with his colleague. Outside, he meets Shin, who's shocked to see him wearing the glass. She warns him to remove the glass since it could change his personality, but he remains adamant about wearing it. She begins to yell at him, but at this moment, Miss Jin catches them together, so Shin runs away. Now alone with the teacher, Detective Han tries to ask her out for dinner, but changes his mind. As he walks away, she sees the hundreds of red lines on his head and smiles. At the police station, Detective Han interviews the timid girl, while his colleague interrogates the male student. The boy insists that the girl is lying, but the girl insists that the boy violated her. To solve this, Detective Han opens the door to the interrogation room to see if the boy's line connects to hers, but he's shocked to see that they don't. So he wonders why the girl is falsely accusing the boy. After the interrogation, he instructs his colleague to dismiss the case. That night, as he walks home, he sees Shin waiting outside for him. They sit down together to have a talk about the glass. So he tells her how he had used it to solve the case between the timid girl and the male student. Upon hearing this, Shin tells him that his judgment may have been wrong. She reveals that in the previous week, the timid girl had no red lines, but after drinking at the male student's house, she suddenly appeared with 4 red lines, so there was more to the case. Detective Han is shocked to hear this and immediately goes with his colleague to interrogate the male student at his house. The boy allows them in, so they look around his room but find nothing incriminating. So, they search through the clothing donation bin in the area to find evidence. They eventually find a nylon containing bed sheets stained with blood. Later that day, they review CCTV footage around the male student's apartment, but are unable to find any strong evidence. However, Detective Han notices a group of high school boys walking into the huge apartment. He counts their red lines before they walk in, and recounts them when they walk out. With this, he discovers that the boys' red lines increased by 1 after they walked out of the apartment. Meanwhile, at school, Shin monitors the timid girl's red lines and realizes that the 4 lines all connect to a group of 4 friends, who are close friends with the male student accused of violation. Upon seeing this, she immediately calls Detective Han to share her discovery, but he's already at her school and knows the truth. He immediately takes the group of boys to the station for interrogation. 3 of them remain calm, but Han notices one of the boys acting agitated, so he decides to focus on the boy to get the truth. He drives the boy out of the station and lies to him about finding evidence that could put only him in jail. Hearing this, the the boy confesses that all 4 of the boys had committed the crime together. It turns out that the male student had orchestrated the crime. He had invited the group of boys to violate the timid girl, but didn't join in the crime. With this confession, the other boys also confess to the same thing. So, Detective Han officially solves the case and transfers it to the court. That night, as he drives Shin home, he receives a call from the nursing home where his father stays. So he drops her at the bus stop and rushes over to the nursing home. The attendant tells him that his father had gone missing, so when they review the CCTV footage together, he discovers that his father had been taken out of the nursing home by Miss Jin, the homeroom teacher. While being shocked at this, he suddenly receives a picture of his niece at the hospital from an unknown number. So, he rushes out to check up on her, but on the way, he calls a colleague and instructs him to run a background check on the homeroom teacher. He reaches the hospital and runs towards his niece's room, but she's lying fine on the bed. So he heaves a breath of relief and sits down to watch over her. As he looks at her, he notices the red line on her head bending over, which means the person she slept with is around the corner. He immediately pulls out his gun and walks over to the door. As he points the gun, the door opens, and he's shocked to see his father walking in. He puts down the gun in relief, but as his father walks over to the niece, he puts on the glasses and realizes that the niece's red line connects to his father, which means the old man had been violating his granddaughter. Detective Han flares up in anger and throws his father to the ground. He tries to choke the man to death, but restrains himself. He bursts out in tears and yells at his father for doing such a terrible thing to the little girl. Meanwhile, at the bus station, Shin calls over her male best friend, who immediately rushes over to meet her. Since it's the midnight before her birthday, he wishes her a happy birthday in advance, but she asks him for a favor. She takes him to the hotel where she works and confesses her love for him, so they make out with each other. When she looks up, she sees a red line connecting them together. That night, as they walk home together, he volunteers to buy something at a convenience store and rushes off. Shin waits for him at the roadside and suddenly hears a loud scream from passers-by. She goes to check the commotion and is shocked to see her boyfriend lying dead on the floor with tons of rods stuck to his back. She breaks down beside him and begins to wonder if she's cursed. While crying to herself, she receives a video message showing that her female friend has been held captive. Along with the video, the unknown number wishes her a happy birthday and invites her to a mysterious room of boundaries. Seeing this, she calls Detective Han for help. She shows him the text message and reveals she suspects that someone is counting down to her 17th birthday. She believes it's a significant day. Upon hearing this, Detective Han deduces that someone had lured her to attend the high school, and that same person made his niece find the eyeglasses in order to see the red lines. With this, he suspects that the homeroom teacher has something to do with everything. He immediately drives over to the school. On the way, he tells Shin that their homeroom teacher doesn't exist. The background check he ran on her brought up nothing. Upon arriving at the school, they both run to the classroom to find their friend, who was held captive. They enter the same classroom, unknown to them. It's a portal that leads to different places. While Detective Han enters and finds the classroom empty, Shin enters and finds her friend trapped inside. She rescues the girl and walks out, but is shocked that the detective is nowhere to be found. Left with no choice, she decides to run out of the school with the girl. They run downstairs, but each time they take the stairs, it leads them back to the same floor. At this moment, they realize they're trapped on the floor. Meanwhile, Detective Han races to the rooftop after being unable to find Shin. As he opens the door to the rooftop and slams it, Shin and her friend hear the sound of the door and decide to go to the rooftop as well, but they find no one there. The door to the rooftop takes Detective Han to another dimension, where he sees a crowd of people. A girl among the crowd narrates how the glasses had helped her when she was at her lowest. She had met Miss Jin, the homeroom teacher, who gave her the glasses. After seeing the red lines, she'd been triggered to kill everyone she ever slept with. In order to eliminate the red lines on her head, Miss Jin had told her that she wished for everyone in the world to see the red lines. While facing the crowd, the girl severs the head of her last partner to permanently eliminate her red lines. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, Shin suddenly sees her friend wearing eyeglasses. The girl begins to act strangely and reveals that their homeroom teacher had given the glasses to her. At this moment, the homeroom teacher appears in front of the crowd with millions of red lines connecting to her head. She removes the lines and stands in front of a table. Upon removing the cover on the table, Detective Han is shocked to see his father lying trapped on it. He rushes forward to rescue his father, but Miss Jin hands him a dagger and instructs him to kill his father for sleeping with his niece. Han takes the dagger from her, but instead of killing his father, he tries to stab her with it, but she snatches it away from him and pushes him aside. Then, she kills the father with the dagger. Seeing this, Han pulls out his gun and fires several rounds at her, but the bullets deflect without hurting her. As she walks to him, she reveals that the entire world will be able to see the red lines soon. Meanwhile, Shin and her friend wrestle with each other due to the glass. In the process, Shin removes the girl's glass and smashes it, causing the girl to regain her senses. But the girl immediately notices that Shin's eye color has changed. At this moment, a blood droplet begins to flow out of Shin's face. The blood floats to the sky and changes to strings of red lines. Suddenly, Shin finds herself among the crowd of people facing Miss Jin. She yells at the woman to release the detective. So, the woman flings him away and focuses her attention on Shin. She tells Shin that being born with the ability to see the red lines was a blessing and not a curse. Upon saying this, the crowd of people removes their glasses and surrounds Shin. Then, Miss Jin raises her dagger to kill her. But suddenly, Shin's mother comes out of nowhere and takes the stab for her. It turns out her mother was part of the crowd. As she cries over her mother, the woman tells her that she also had the glasses, and when she saw that her husband was cheating on her with her sister, she had to kill him. She clarifies that the drawing that Shin drew as a child wasn't the reason she killed her husband. Seeing her mother's state, Shin rushes over to kill Miss Jin, but the woman stabs her with a dagger. Blood droplets begin to flow out of the cut area and float to the sky. Miss Jin uses her power to raise Shin up to the sky. There, Shin's blood forms a ball of red lines. So Miss Jin reveals that her death will make everyone in the world gain the ability to see the lines. She lowers Shin to the ground, causing her to collapse on the floor. Then, she manipulates the huge ball of red lines and causes it to burst out in all parts of the earth. While distracted, Shin suddenly stabs her with a knife, but she tells Shin that it's already too late since the deed has been done. As Miss Jin collapses to the floor, her followers begin to panic and run around. The noise wakes Detective Han up. As he stands on his feet, someone from the crowd runs into him, causing his glasses to fall off and get lost. Shin gets teleported back to the rooftop, where her friend checks up on her. They also find Detective Han on the rooftop. Meanwhile, the cloud turns red with everyone on Earth being able to see it. As they inspect the cloud, red lines suddenly begin to appear on people's heads, with everyone gaining the ability to see them. The world becomes filled with red lines, so everyone wears black shades to block the red color. After some months, Seon-ah recovers from coma, but her red line disappears since the old man was dead. She graduates from high school and amends her relationship with her uncle, who continues to walk around with hundreds of red lines. Shin goes to visit her dead boyfriend's grave, But suddenly, the homeroom teacher appears from behind her and calls her name.